Thank you, Ms. von Friedeberg. That intervention concludes the panel discussions, but it's important to remember that our journey towards an economy sustained by partnerships, principled leadership, and sustainable investment is only beginning. While all of today's speakers will need to deliver on their commitments, it's also up to all of us to play our part to shape the future we want and the future we need. Now it's time for some closing remarks to wrap up the 2020 SDG Business Forum. Her Excellency Evelyn Weaver-Croes is the first female Prime Minister of Aruba and formed Aruba's first coalition government in over 20 years. She's dedicated her tenure to enable economic resilience through human-centered innovation and policymaking, particularly by supporting younger generations and women to take their place in a rapidly changing world. Please welcome Her Excellency Evelyn Weaver-Croes.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and greetings from our one happy island, Aruba. It is an honor to provide the closing remarks to the SDG Business Forum of the UN Global Compact. For the past 3 days at this conference, leaders from businesses, entrepreneurs, government, and civil society convened to showcase their commitment to reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality is that our world has been shaken to its core by the pandemic. For Aruba, it was unimaginable that flights would be completely halted and that tourists would be unable to enjoy Aruba's unique natural splendor. This stark reality has caused for a strengthened resolve and commitment to build back better, and this requires transformative action. Now, more than ever, at this time of unprecedented disruption and global transformation, the need to strengthen cross-sectoral partnership is more relevant than ever, as it is only through strong, genuine, and durable partnerships that we can possibly rebuild our societies. We are commemorating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and the 20th anniversary of the Global Compact. We must stand united in solidarity and mutual understanding in what our lifetime is, a crisis of unparalleled proportions since the founding of the United Nations. Today, we turn to the UN again, and this time also as a change agent, an innovator, and an agile partner. The pandemic has exposed Aruba's structural vulnerabilities. The role that digital transformation plays in our society is unquestioned. Through an urgent call for action to our partners and citizens, a unique platform, we unite citizens to participate in our island-wide effort to develop our economic recovery and innovation. Aruba is committed to continue its work towards a people-centered approach of innovation and sustainable development, with focus on creating a more agile government with a strong focus on e-government, economic incentives, and entrepreneurial sustainable solutions, taking proactive steps to ensure connectivity and accessibility for all its citizens. It is a shared responsibility to create stronger and fairer society for all. Yet, my government, like many others, is not able to do this on its own. Indeed, strong private sector and financial investment are needed to ensure that Aruba can thrive and flourish and become a more inclusive, equal society that leaves no one behind. I call upon everyone to embrace a new way of thinking, to forge the path to a sustainable, resilient recovery in this decade of action in partnership and solidarity. With decisive efforts from all stakeholders of society to use the SDGs as drivers for innovation, for resilience, and for transformative action. With bold ambitions geared at not only bouncing back, but more importantly, bouncing forward. More than ever, broad political commitment and public engagement is fundamental. We need to enable public, private, and civic sector to confidently work together in new ways to co-create and to shape lasting solutions for a more sustainable future. working together across borders, across sectors, and across generations. In fact, it is the only way forward to trigger a ripple effect and catapult us towards a transformative recovery. In closing, humanity has shown time and time again to rise up to the challenge that we as a world face and reposition our sails. Aruba and the Kingdom of the Netherlands are committed partners in this venture, with a 2030 agenda for sustainable development as our compass. We can and we will build back better and stronger. We will do this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, continuing on our theme of investment to recover better, our next speaker, His Excellency Mr. Frank Meister, was appointed Minister of Foreign Trade and Economic Attractiveness after testing positive for COVID-19 in March. Please welcome His Excellency Mr. Frank Meister.
Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Madame la Présidente et Directrice exécutive du Global Compact, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est avec un grand plaisir que je m'adresse à vous aujourd'hui et je salue particulièrement la nouvelle présidente et directrice exécutive du Global Compact, Madame Sanda Ojiambo, pour sa nomination cette année. Je me félicite de la qualité des débats qui ont lieu aujourd'hui et ces 2 derniers jours dans le cadre de cet événement organisé par le Pacte mondial des Nations Unies et j'espère que les échanges de ce jour permettront de renforcer durablement l'engagement de tous les acteurs en faveur des objectifs de développement durable. Mesdames et messieurs, 2020 est une année particulièrement symbolique à plusieurs titres. Elle marque tout d'abord le 20e anniversaire du Pacte mondial des Nations Unies et elle ouvre également la décennie d'action lancée par le secrétaire général des Nations Unies Antonio Guterres afin de redoubler d'efforts pour atteindre les objectifs de développement durable à l'horizon 2030. Cette année est également l'année de tous les défis, dans un contexte unique engendré par la pandémie de Covid-19 qui est venue freiner de manière brutale les progrès réalisés. Selon les estimations de la Banque mondiale, entre 70 et 100 millions de personnes pourraient sombrer dans l'extrême pauvreté et 265 millions de personnes supplémentaires pourraient faire face à de graves pénuries alimentaires d'ici à la fin de l'année. Cette crise aura également des impacts de long terme sur l'ensemble des secteurs économiques et sociaux. Aujourd'hui, le constat est simple. Malgré les progrès accomplis, nous ne sommes pas sur la bonne voie pour atteindre les ODD et réaliser l'agenda 2030. Avant le début de la crise, le déficit de financement pour atteindre les ODD était estimé entre 2 500 et 3 000 milliards d'euros par an. Le financement de l'agenda 2030 exige une mobilisation de l'ensemble des acteurs de la sphère économique publique comme privée. La crise de la Covid-19 rend cette exigence encore plus primordiale, afin de répondre aux besoins de financement du développement qui se sont sensiblement accrus pour mettre en œuvre une relance durable, inclusive et résiliente des économies. La France a fait de l'implication du secteur privé dans le financement du développement une de ses priorités. Et elle soutient l'action du Pacte mondial des Nations Unies qui joue un rôle essentiel dans l'appropriation des objectifs de développement durable par les acteurs économiques. De nombreuses initiatives ont également émergé sur le plan international afin de mobiliser la finance et l'épargne privée au service du développement durable. En 2019, la France, avec les autres pays du G7, a confié à l'OCDE et au PNUD le mandat de proposer un cadre commun exigeant pour encourager les acteurs économiques et financiers d'aligner leurs investissements avec les ODD. Les montants en jeu sont considérables. Ce sont des milliards de dollars d'investissements privés et d'épargne qui sont concernés et peuvent être orientés favorablement vers les ODD pour contribuer ainsi concrètement à une relance durable, inclusive et résiliente des économies. L'OCDE et le PNUD présenteront en novembre prochain, à l'occasion de l'édition 2020 du Forum de Paris sur la paix, les recommandations que les groupes d'experts auront identifiées. Je vous invite à participer activement à ce mouvement en faveur de l'alignement des flux sur les ODD afin de rendre encore plus concrets vos engagements. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, votre rôle est crucial en faveur des objectifs du développement durable. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Excellency. We look forward to that Paris Peace Forum in November. Today's closing keynote speaker believes that social and environmental responsibility should deliver a return on investment, a mindset that could not be more fitting in our current economic environment. His corporate leadership has delivered transformational commitments, such as plant 1 million trees to promote responsible reforestation efforts and to connect 1 billion people to the digital economy by 2025. As the chair of several business councils, he champions public-private partnerships and private-private partnerships, which accelerate progress towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and the purpose-first economy, particularly through digital innovation and connectivity. Please welcome Mr. Ajay Banja, chair of the International Chamber of Commerce and the chief executive officer of MasterCard.
Business as usual is over. And that's clear by the fact that we're meeting virtually today. This coronavirus, this has just disrupted lives and livelihoods. It certainly has upended the day-to-day realities of how we all conduct business. We can no longer take things like face-to-face meetings, handshakes, or frankly, even the opportunity to make deals while breaking bread for granted. But far more than that, we can no longer take for granted the wider range of social supports and systems that have helped the private sector, where I belong, along the way, from the child care that allows our employers to focus on work for a few hours each day, to the educational systems that develop our next generation of leaders at pace and with great depth, or to the small businesses that are collectively the world's largest employer and contribute to life in a million different ways, or to the trade routes that move medical supplies from one point of the world to another, and the trade relations that smooth and speed their way, and so much more. What the pandemic has shown us is that our lives are deeply interconnected. What affects one impacts us all. It has also laid bare painful truths about just how vulnerable we really are when it comes to social inequalities, or when it comes to climate change, or when it comes to economic exclusion. So when I say to you, business as usual is over, what I'm really saying is that we cannot go back to the way things were. We cannot go back to the time when we saw these fragilities on the horizon. And we either said, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could help out with that? Or worse, we looked away because we thought they didn't have anything to do with us or our businesses. The truth is, they have everything to do with our businesses because they impact people. As leaders, it is incumbent upon us to strike the right balance in a triangle of considerations. So let me lay out that triangle. On one side, there's one versus many. This is about how we act inclusively. On the other side, there's humanity versus nature. This is about how we address ecological issues. And at the foundation of the triangle is the ultimate question of long-term versus short-term. Now that is about how we put the incentives for action and possible impacts into perspective. And that perspective is everything. If we continue to treat people differently based on their race, their heritage, their gender, or how they express themselves, what are we doing actually? We're just hobbling ourselves. If we continue to erode the health of the planet, we're going to be endangering our own health. If we continue to allow people to get left out of the economic engines we are building, then we're moving forward with a half-empty fuel tank. We're not going to get very far. In the aftermath of World War I, and at the height of another global pandemic, the International Chamber of Commerce was founded with the conviction that commerce could be an enabler of global peace and global prosperity. So 100 years later, I stand before you as the ICC chair as we discuss how the private sector's bias for commercially sustainable solutions can contribute to the sustainability and growth of everyone. We can be merchants of peace and prosperity because we have, within the mechanisms of commerce, the ability to unleash the forces of innovation, of creation, and frankly, drive solutions with both business and social impact. Now, for the private sector to help the world to build back better in the months and years to come, I believe that we really need to do three things. The first one is to lean into our interconnectivity. Our partnerships, our collaborations, they make us all stronger, they make us more resilient. They offer us the chance to bring our strengths together They offer us the chance to create a whole greater than the sum of its parts. Even at a time when nationalism and nativism threaten to isolate willing partners, there are examples of public and private organizations coming together to help out in this time of crisis. Like the ICC's collaboration with the World Health Organization, with UNICEF, with the UN Regional Economic Commissions, and numerous international partners to distribute workplace health and safety guidance through our network of 45 million businesses worldwide. Or like MasterCard's partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust, which launched with $125 million in funding from the founding partners to accelerate the COVID-19 response by identifying, assessing, developing, and scaling up therapeutics. Now, these efforts represent a new spirit of international cooperation, one that is built on mutual trust, respect, and most importantly, collective responsibility. Now, imagine what we could do if we combined forces and make progress in the spaces of debt, emergency financing, access to vaccines and treatments, just as a few examples. So now let me give you the second example, the second point. Make the digital economy work for everyone, everywhere. Access to the digital economy is no longer a nice to have. It is a necessity. To be clear, a resilient rebuild aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals will only be achievable if we can close the gap between those who have access to digital technologies and the opportunities that come with them, and those who do not. I think we all agree we must close the digital divide, but we have to do it in a way that prioritizes people's right to control their data and uses their data responsibly. So the first step is to build and provide the digital infrastructure, as well as the tools and the capacity to use it. But the next steps, however, are equally important. We need to create a universal identity mechanism so that we can ensure globally interoperable services and data. We can redefine the rules for cybersecurity to create the combinatory effect of layered defenses. And we need to develop policy and regulations that provide the guide rails to support innovation and collaboration. So in the next 2 or 3 years, the continued deployment of 5G, the proliferation of IoT, the expansion of cloud and edge technology, and the explosion of AI will have amazing and tremendous impact on the ways we conduct business, on the way we educate our youth, on the way we secure our borders, physical and virtual, on the way we develop healthcare. But we can't have an internet of everything without the inclusion of everyone. And we will not achieve that unless we work together to build the system, foster use, offer access, protect it, and the people using it, and support its growth with a principled approach to data usage. So now on to the third point, deliver on the decade of action together. So today's CEOs have made commitments to reverse the harmful effects of climate change while limiting further impacts on our environment. We've made commitments to deliver opportunities for meaningful livelihoods and to drive sustainable economic growth. But delivering on these commitments is up to all of us, government and civil society leaders, young people, employees, and families, not just to hold businesses to account, but to do our part, to put our shoulder to the wheel, to build lasting pathways for achieving those aims. The UN's Decade of Action will be shaped by the quality of the partnerships we develop and by the systems we create to enable a recovery that places resilience at its core. My hope is that we can build a new business as usual, where collaboration and trust are the expectation, not the exception. If we are true to our conviction in the SDGs, but also our commitment to those SDGs, then there is not a moment for us to lose in charting this course. Your Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General, know that businesses and the International Chamber of Commerce are ready to lead from the front lines. We're looking forward to what we're able to achieve together in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banja, for that urgent call to action. And now to wrap up the SDG Business Forum, which has been expertly co-convened for 5 years in a row by UNDESA, the ICC, and the UN Global Compact, it gives me great pleasure to invite the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, to give her concluding remarks.
Excellencies, business leaders, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I send my warmest greetings to this closing session of the SDG Business Forum. I thank the International Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and the UN Global Compact for bringing together the private sector at this challenging time. With the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging all corners of the world, this is a key moment to discuss lasting solutions for a more sustainable future in line with Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement. 5 years since the adoption of the SDGs, I'm encouraged by the response we are witnessing from the private sector. I congratulate the business sector for the commitment demonstrated this Monday at the UN Global Compact Private Sector Forum, where on the occasion of the UN 75, over 100 CEOs from over 100 countries signed a statement of support for renewed global cooperation. You are deeply engaged in all areas of SDG implementation. On the financing side, the Global Investors for Sustainable Development Alliance is breaking new ground, and you're developing products to support governments' efforts to expand social protection and cash transfers. You're transitioning investment portfolios to net zero greenhouse gas emissions and promoting youth innovation and gender equality. You've stepped up to the support efforts to overcome the COVID-19 crisis, for example, by facilitating online education for children and young people. But we must go further and faster. I welcome the private sector COVID-19 Global Facility, launched by the UN Development Programme, the UN Global Compact, and the International Chamber of Commerce, to focus on public-private and private-private cooperation to unlock new possibilities for sustainable growth. With the SDGs and the UN Global Compact's 10 principles as a blueprint, this partnership can help to engage and support the private sector and our societies to recover better. I commend the emphasis the facility will put on country contexts to adapt its work to specific challenges and opportunities. If we want our efforts to transform lives, we need to work at the country level, making full use of the Global Compact's country networks and working hand in hand with other partners, with the support of our resident coordinators and our UN country teams, and building on the national COVID-19 socioeconomic response plans. More than ever before, we need solidarity, hope, and the political will to see this crisis through together. We have the knowledge, capacity, and innovation needed. If we are ambitious enough, we can gather the full complement of resources required to implement the SDGs successfully. Let us rise to meet that moment. I thank you.
Our heartfelt thanks to the UN Deputy Secretary General for those concluding remarks. That wraps up our program for the day. On behalf of all of our hosts, ICC, UN, DESA, and the UN Global Compact, thank you for joining us for the 5th SDG Business Forum. This also wraps up the entire 3 days of Uniting Business Live, the first completely virtual event series during the high-level UN General Assembly Week here in New York. By moving to virtual, we have reduced our carbon emissions by 98.5% when compared to our in-person events the same week last year. Over the last 3 days, we have virtually convened 3 forums: the Private Sector Forum, the Global Impact Forum, and today's SDG Business Forum. A total of 27 hours of conference time. Emissions were reduced in all aspects of the event, including air travel, ground transportation, hotel energy, and venue energy. This comes to a total savings of 1.1 million kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions. By convening our participants on this virtual platform in 2020, the UN Global Compact's Uniting Business Live has saved the equivalent of 4.5 million kilometers driven by an average car, or the energy-related CO2 impacts from 192 homes over an entire year. That's good news for all of us and planet Earth too, and a great example of sustainability. In fact, this has been the most sustainable UN event ever. Thank you again for joining us for Uniting Business Live. Goodbye.